Hello, welcome back to the Gospel According to Now, the epic telling of Jesus' second coming. Today, we are going to be diving into chapter 2. I really hope that you enjoy it, and we're just going to pop off now. We're just going to start, okay? Everybody ready? Okay. Chapter 2. In Jesus' first coming, the truth of his childhood and youth had remained a mystery in the written accounts of his life on earth. His second coming was quite different in this regard, as Jesus had consistently, since his awakening, openly confessed the brutal reality of the life he had been enduring. In his first coming, the death of his father Joseph was an occurrence which had been shrouded in secrecy, and his mother, Mary, had been a virgin who became miraculously pregnant with Jesus at the tender age of 13. In his second coming, the death of his father, similarly with the name Joseph, had also been a mystery shrouded in secrecy. His mother, however, was no virgin when she first became pregnant, although she had led others to believe that she, in fact, had been. Jesus had been born into a lie, from the loins of a liar, and had learned to lie in order to protect the fragile ego of the woman he had come to regard as his mother. Though she had birthed Jesus and his other siblings, she not at any point stepped into her natural role as mother. The opposite was true of Jesus' second coming mother. Jesus, in his second coming, had no memory of his mother holding him, comforting him, or sacrificing for him. There were no words of love, adoration, or appreciation. Instead, Jesus had spent his 32 years being hated by the person who was supposed to love him the most. The envy which permeated his mother's being caused her to regard her child as competition from the time he was born. The light that shone from his holy presence was one that his mother only wanted to destroy, a constant illumination of the inconceivable darkness which composed her vessel. Next to Jesus, his mother's hollow, vapid spirit was clearly made apparent. This caused his mother to regard her child as a burden, something that must be made dark in order to disguise the truth of her existence, that she was pure evil. The enemy had inhabited the body and soul of Jesus' mother from the time of her infancy, and she had remained what would be regarded as a reprobate. With a wicked heart, a polluted mind, and a poisoned spirit, there was no goodness in her. When Jesus was born, the attention that he attracted caused a jealousy and covetousness to bloom which would steer her course in the direction of shame and punishment. Her ability to punish Jesus was a reflection, as she saw it, of her power over him, her power over God, her power over what is holy and true. Thus, her wicked mind developed a plot to completely siphon the light from Jesus' vessel, which fueled and fed her empty, dark existence. Being ruled by the enemy meant that she had fully utilized the techniques that he was named after. Lies, deceit, abuse, slander, murder, slavery, condemnation, blame, and fear were the tools in her arsenal which she utilized to break down her child. Once broken down, she dismembered his true identity and built one that would benefit her the most. Jesus had gone from a loving, empathetic, unique light unto others to being a parasitic, blasphemous burden unto all who loved him. Jesus woke from a dream, where he was in his mother's house, concealing himself underneath her dining room table. He watched quietly as she came downstairs and drunkenly tripped over something that was left on the floor of the hallway. He was concerned that she would notice him there as she got closer to him and began eating something. Jesus watched her icy, vacant eyes as she mindlessly consumed whatever sustenance she was partaking in. Jesus had another moment of fear that his mother would see him or feel his feet sticking out from beneath the table. He felt relieved when he realized again that she could not even register that Jesus was there watching her. This occurrence took place in the dream after demonic entities had attempted to trap Jesus but had been unable to catch him due to his ability to fly away from them. In this dream, he had also looked upon a set of 2 keys, where he noticed that they were both bent and crooked. Jesus thought to himself that these keys were too destroyed to open anything. Despite his strange, unnerving dream, Jesus woke with a peaceful mind and heart. Before going to bed, Jesus had taken the time to record a video of himself speaking directly to his mother, with the hope that if he spoke directly to her instead of about her, he would find relief from his ongoing need to gain understanding regarding his perspective. The reality was, the only person who needed to understand how he felt about his mother was her. He was relieved when it was over, and he rewatched the video he had created. Sending it to her was an option, but it was one that would do very little. Would she even finish watching it? Would she retaliate due to the honest and forthcoming truth that Jesus had made strikingly clear? He supposed it did not matter if she received it or not. The point was that Jesus was able to release from himself the remnants of poison that had once infected his whole system. The constant flood of bad memories attached to his mother had once been so overwhelming that they had disheartened Jesus to the point of deep depression. Now, he regarded his experience with his mother as the one that had strengthened him the most, not by anything that she had done to positively affect Jesus, but due to God's ever-present intervention. Despite her ongoing, never-ending attempts to degrade and diminish Jesus, his Father had remained faithful to protect his precious Son. It would take years for Jesus to understand that what he had perceived as love was the opposite. Jesus sat at a table sipping his morning coffee. The Antichrist had been working on the hearts of the men around him in order to disrupt their understanding of Jesus' love. By smearing his reputation, they were able to bring doubt into the mind of their Savior regarding his security and station. It took some time for Jesus to remind himself of who he is, so that God could restore his sense of peace unto himself. Jesus was aware of the fact that whenever there was doubt or fear, that the enemy was to blame. It was true. There was always a chance that Jesus could be moved from his place of comfort, as he was still in the world, which the Antichrist still held sway within. However, Jesus was aware of the fact that whenever one season ended, another one would begin. What his Father had to offer him after any loss was always substantially more fulfilling than what he would leave behind. Jesus held his faith, though, that he would not be removed from his current station, and that he would remain in his position. What Jesus was most excited about was the revelation of marital love that his Father had given to him during his journey. He saw a future filled with many children, and the kind of love he had been deprived of in his first coming. He had come to the conclusion in his second coming that it would be akin to his first, that he would live a celibate life focused only on God. During this journey, however, he had seen that creation was a continuation, that what had been started would not end, that life would carry on in the fashion God had designed it to carry on. Marriage and childbirth were in fact the way God would bring forth the new world of unity with Jesus as King, ruling with humanity as equal. Jesus looked forward to the days when he would feel the body of his love in his arms, a comfort he greatly longed to experience. In his second coming, Jesus had shared his body with others, but never had it been ordained by his Father. Jesus had been seeking comfort and belonging instead of God's will. Jesus woke again from a dream that left him in a strange mindset. In this vision, Jesus was sitting on a dark porch when a small child approached, walking briskly past Jesus. He called out to the child and told him to come to him, asking why the child was walking in the dark at such a strange hour. The child explained to Jesus that it was what he did all the time. Jesus became distracted by another individual who began talking to him. He looked over the shoulder of this individual to watch as the child's father walked up the stairs, berating his child, who Jesus could now see was actually a boy. The boy's father gripped the child's head and lifted him up, placing him on the railing, which was on the second floor. The father had an abusive air to the treatment of his son, so Jesus walked over to the father, getting his attention. The father turned around, and Jesus looked into his eyes, seeing that they were the eyes of a goat. Jesus knew instantly who this was, and took the boy to his medicine woman, who lit some medicine on fire. She explained that the boy had never experienced true nutrition, and the flames from the fire rose beautifully in an ethereal way, golden waves that resembled peacock feathers coating the ceiling. The last thing Jesus saw was what moved like the waves of the ocean, but looked like the treetops of the rainforest. Jesus had tears in his eyes as he greeted his father outside, remembering the dream in chopped pieces. This morning was the anniversary of the day 2 years prior that Jesus was tricked by the enemy and held hostage for 3 days in the wilderness. He had been deceived, robbed, drugged, and deprived of his basic needs. No sleep, no food, no water, no one to trust. The goal had been to kill Jesus after degrading and humiliating him. Much to their chagrin, Jesus called out to his Father and listened for the signs that God showed him to escape this particular hellscape. The victory belonged to his Father, but it did not negate the fact that the experience itself had been brutal and torturous, disorienting and frightening. Jesus had fought with every fiber of his strength to survive, which left him exhausted beyond his own comprehension. Throughout his life, Jesus had begged for death more times than he could count, longing for release from the suffering he had constantly been subjected to. But in that moment, as well as many others, Jesus had proven his desire to live by defying those that persecuted him and maintaining his own life. When it came down to it, Jesus understood that his life held value, even when he had not yet discovered his true identity. For 30 years he had lived in ignorance to his calling, his holiness never defiled despite the foul and unbecoming ways that he had been degraded himself, and allowed others to degrade him. Jesus had figured out at different points in his existence that perhaps the most good he could do was end his own life. He had mistakenly believed that his death would make a stronger impression on the world than his life ever could. He understood now that nothing could be further from the truth. He was the light shining in an increasingly dark and sordid world, and he was grateful that his past attempts to end his own life had not been successful. He was grateful that the enemy had been unable to execute him as he had attempted so many times. Still, Jesus' body was in a state of trauma from his past experiences, where the flood of adrenaline had overridden his flow of oxytocin. For 7 years he had forsaken the love of man for the love of God, and the results of his persistence were becoming remarkably apparent. His love for humanity had transformed from one where he wanted to save them from themselves to one where he initiated discipline. It was discipline and obedience to his Father that would save their souls, not him pulling them from their suffering and keeping them from the full repercussions of their choices. Jesus had paid in full for the transgressions of himself and others, so allowing his people to take accountability was a gift sure to bring their own sanctification. That's chapter 2. And on the next one, we're going to be reading a parable. A parable. Okay, pretty exciting. So I really hope that you enjoyed chapter 2, a little shorter than chapter 1. No big deal. I kind of want to keep it short so that you can, everybody likes short stuff now. I don't even have to justify that. There's no explanation. But I will see you in the third installation, which will be a parable. Bye.